We are really happy to present to you now a piece full of musical character and actual characters. And to get into our theme of musical characters with this piece called CJ Storms the Castle, we're going to learn some of those musical themes right now. And this is the best way to get into it. The very first theme in this story is the theme of the kingdom itself, where all of these characters are living. And that sounds like this. Now to get into this next musical character theme, if everybody could just for 1 second pretend that you're the most beautiful princess in the world. 1, 2, 3, go. And let's hear the music that goes with our princess theme. Here we go. So every time you hear that melody, you know we've got the princess theme. Now, no fairy tale would be complete without a dragon. So if everybody could, on the count of 3, give me your best dragon face. 1, 2, 3. Oh, wow, some of those faces have sounds. Let's listen to the dragon theme here. You can make your face along with that if you want to. Are you ready? Here, let's listen to Wendy. Awesome. So let's get our next character here. Oh yes, there's a character who's a magician, and he spends a lot of time playing tricks, casting some spells. He's like a sort of wizard magician, and his music sounds like this. So you know it's the magician when you hear that. All right, there's also a character that we're going to learn in a minute. It's inside the music called The Jealous Knight, and you'll hear his music as it's introduced in the story. Are you guys ready? Okay, here comes CJ Storms the Castle. Welcome to CJ Storms the Castle, the story of a princess, a magician, a jealous knight, a dragon, and the importance of funding your local classical music station. Our program is sponsored today by our generous corporate underwriters, including Helga's Helmets and Johann's Jousting World, the place for all your jousting needs. We're not jesting, we're just jousting. Our story begins with the princess, alone in her room in the top of the castle tower, terribly lonely, with only the local classical music station, WCJ-FM, to keep her company. She loved to listen to the beautiful music and dreamed someday of finding someone else who shared the same love. If there were only somebody else out there, she thought. Somebody in a neighboring kingdom, perhaps. She laid back and relaxed in her stone recliner, taking in the view of the rolling hills through the bars of her castle bedroom window. Little did the princess know that there was somebody listening, somebody in a neighboring kingdom, who loved music just as much as she, but we'll get to that in a minute. The princess was not alone in the castle. Unfortunately, she shared this massive stone building with two other interesting characters, one of them human, the other one no longer human. First, let's meet the jealous knight, a man once noble and kind, who now sulked in his windowless basement room in apartment number 1B. Once in love with a fair maiden. In fact, she was a classmate of his, studying to be a knight herself, and they met by sitting next to each other at night classes. Anyway, as the story goes, she challenged the jealous knight to a jousting match, and she won. The jealous knight, embittered by his loss, employed the skills of a freelance magician who transformed the woman knight into a dragon. The dragon now guarded at the drawbridge of the castle, so that the knight could never ever leave. Like ever. Fellow fair maiden that the jealous knight turned into a dragon, she was also the twin sister of the princess. And since the jealous knight couldn't woo the knightess anymore, he turned his amorous attentions towards the princess herself, who he thought, practically speaking, was the next best thing. Now, do you remember that I said the princess was not alone in her love of music? That there was somebody who was listening in the kingdom next door? Let's meet the freelance magician, spending his day doing tricks, playing games, casting a simple spell or two, and of course, listening to WCJ FM. Circle yes or no. It was very awkward. Just then, as the princess was taking refuge from the flirty knight by listening to her radio, she noticed something interesting about the clouds up in the sky. They began to take shape, like music notes on a staff, with swirling curves and loop-de-loops. They even had lyrics. Well, as requested, the princess set free a bird high up into the sky. The magician, seeing the bird from afar, immediately set forth from his home in search of the princess. The jealous knight saw all of this, of course, and he was not pleased. In fact, he was jealous. If I can't have the princess, no one will, he thought. He hastily sat down and wrote a letter to the king, who was also the princess's father, with a simple ultimatum. Dear king, it read, either your daughter the princess falls in love with me right now, or I will cut all of the funding to the local classical music station WCJ-FM. Signed, the jealous knight. P.S. I'm not really jealous, people just call me that. Did anyone notice we've been leaving out a character? Who could it be? Here's another hint. Who am I leaving out? Who is it? The dragon. That's right, the dragon all this time has been guarding the castle drawbridge. Meanwhile, the princess had grown very tired of the jealous knight and his ways. Unaware of his threat to pull funding from the local classical station, she wrote a letter to the jealous knight. It read, Dear jealous knight, no, I don't like you, and I will never be your bride. You turned my sister into a dragon, for crying out loud. Like I'm gonna forget that. Signed, the princess. P.S. We don't even like the same kind of music. Afraid to confront the jealous knight in person, the princess sent the letter through the castle's snail mail system, a process where the mail is delivered by actual snails. It took about 3 to 4 business days. When the jealous knight received the letter, he immediately carried through with his threat. He attached 2 gold bracelets around the legs of a large raven and sent the bird flying to a corrupt senator in the king's office. The raven also carried a note that read, If you cut the music, you can keep the gold. Then one day, as the princess was listening to her music, it suddenly stopped. The princess felt very sad and confused. Who would do this, she thought. She picked up her shell phone, an actual seashell with a very long cord and a seashell at the other end, and she dialed her father, the king. The king told her all about the jealous knight's plans, and he said he would do everything he could to get the music back on the air. And now we take a break for a word from our corporate sponsor. Is your lance rusty? Is your helmet fog up? Do you no longer abhor your armor? Well, if the answer to any of these questions is yes, you need to head on down to Johan's Jousting World. Johan's Jousting World has everything for today's jousting professional, from the latest model lances to cutting-edge swords. Don't be left in the dark ages, these dark ages. Come on down to Johan's Jousting World. We're not jousting, we're just jousting, Johan's Jousting World. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. The princess was heartbroken. For a week she endured the missing music until one day she stood at the top of the tall spiral stairs and began to cry. The jealous knight, hearing her sobs, ran to the bottom of the stairs. Her tears fell like salty raindrops upon the knight's dull metal armor. Ah, thought the knight, she loves me so much she is brought to tears. Just then, somebody knocked on the castle drawbridge 23 times. It was the freelance magician. He had been following the bird let loose by the princess, and it led him directly to the castle. "Who goes there?" asked the jealous knight. "'Tis I, the magician," replied the magician. "How did you cross the moat and knock upon the drawbridge so many times?" asked the jealous knight. "I used a very, very long stick," answered the magician. "Well played," said the jealous knight, as he ordered the old drawbridge to be lowered. The magician found himself face to face with a fire-breathing dragon who, oddly, looked very familiar. The dragon, but the dragon didn't seem to recognize the magician. The magician remembered transforming a beautiful knightess into a dragon a few years back. "Do you remember me?" he asked. The dragon responded by breathing a ball of hot red fire. "That would be no," said the magician, stepping back. Now the magician noticed something special about the dragon that gave him an idea. When he created the creature, as a sort of play on words, he did not just give her scales, as all dragons have, but he gave her musical scales, like the notes with musical scales on them. He pulled out his traveling flute and challenged the dragon. "I bet my scales are more dangerous than yours." "She's good," thought the magician. "How about some sharps?" Wow. "How about up a whole step, fancy pants?" "Oh, she's tough. How about in thirds, fire face?" "All right, bad breath. You will fail this scale. Prepare to get tripped up on triplets." The dragon, totally exhausted, curled up and fell asleep on the floor. The magician stepped around the dragon, and there he saw his beloved princess at the top of the giant spiral staircase, weeping and sneezing into a Kleenex, and the jealous knight below, looking confused in his salty, tear-covered armor. "Are you the one who set the bird free high into the sky?" "Yes," said the princess. "Are you the one who loves the music?" "Yes," said the princess. "Then I have come for thee," said the magician to the princess. "Together we shall listen to the music, just you and me." The princess began to descend the stairs. to the magician and snarled, "If I can't have the princess, no one will." He raised his sharp sword high above his head. "This is your last gig, Mr. Freelance Magician." And there in that position, the jealous knight found himself completely frozen. You see, the salty tears of the princess had rusted the jealous knight's armor, making him as motionless as an old medieval statue. Just then, "It's the king!" exclaimed the princess. The king entered the castle to find the dragon asleep on the floor, the jealous knight frozen in position, and his daughter the princess in the arms of a freelance magician. "I've come to announce the return of WCJFM," said the king, "and the arrest of a very corrupt senator in my government." "But what of my poor sister?" said the princess. "Can't she be turned from a dragon back into my twin sister again?" "I was just getting to that," said the king. "Whoever can transform this poor dragon back into her former self shall receive 2 golden bracelets that I found in the corrupt senator's office." Oh, I can do it," said the freelance magician. He took out his flute and played the notes of the dragon scales. In fairy tales, the dragon magically appeared again as the brave knightess. Reunited with her twin sister, the princess, the music returned, and all was well again in the kingdom. Poor jealous knight. Well, the magician made a sign that said, "Please support your local classical music station," and hung it around the neck of the poor old rusty knight. He then took the 2 golden bracelets paid to him by the king, and he dropped them through the vertical slots of the jealous knight's helmet. And from that day on, anyone who visited the castle put in a coin, and they kept a WCJFM on the air forever.